Zeta has a lot of changes in 2.50, starting with her high jump. Previously, it had more height than her normal jump, but it didn't really have too much forward momentum. This is her normal jump going forward. This is her high jump. Fairly slow. So if you try to use this to approach from full screen, this would be about as far as you would get on the opponent. And now, the super jump has the same height as a normal jump. To make sure that this doesn't gut the range of this particular movement, they've increased the distance that you travel on a forward high jump. So this will basically mean that Zeta isn't going to be super high up in the skies, which I don't think is too big of an issue, considering that she has excellent air mobility already. Previously, Zeta's crouching medium attack was 9-frame startup. Pretty average for a medium normal, I would say. This did mean that there could be some opportunities and combos that didn't quite come together thanks to the fact that it had this startup. Just for an example that we're going to look at in a moment. Now, crouching medium is 1 frame faster, coming out at 8 frames. This means that it's a slightly better poke in neutral, better in some close-range quarter situations, as well as potentially gives it some new combo utility and links that weren't present before. Dash Heavy has a similar buff like crouching medium. Previously, it was 20 frame startup. Now, Dash Heavy is 3 frames faster, coming out of frame 17. This potentially means it's, again, a better neutral poke for Zeta to use, or even has some new combo utility. However, in my own bit of testing, I have to admit I haven't been able to find anything. But there could be something out there from more experienced Zeta players. Jumping Heavy has some improvements to its hurtbox and hitbox. Previously, at about frame 7 to 9, the earlier active frames of the move, it would be a little bit stubby, and you'd have to rely on the later active frames to reach some greater distances. You can see here I was able to connect at frame 13, but the other earlier active frames weren't, unless I get a little closer. Just to give us a model to compare off of. From frame 7 to 9 now, the forward active hitbox and hurtboxes have been expanded on our Jump Heavy. This should, in theory, mean that it's going to be a little more consistent in some of her combo routing, as well as be slightly better for her to get these early active frames to hit from like a jump-in situation. However, it doesn't seem to be too crazy of a buff. We can see here frame 14 reaches, but frame 9, 12... it's still a little stubby. But I'm pretty sure that more experienced Zeta players could be able to elaborate on what this actually impacts for Zeta. The light, medium, and heavy versions of Infinite Wonders, Zeta's Fireball, all have some changes to them. Let's start with the light version. Previously, if you used this right next to the opponent, you were unsafe at -7. The recovery frames have been reduced by 4, meaning that instead of being punishable, it's actually safe on block at all ranges. So you could theoretically use this to end your pressure sequences with Zeta safely, improving her mental stack in terms of a pressure game. It also means that she's more likely to be plus off of zoning with this in neutral, which is pretty nice. Giving that 1 extra frame advantage could have a bunch of subtle nuances and differences in terms of outcomes of situations. The medium version also gets the improved recovery of the light version. Previously, it was also -7 on block. But there was also some other behaviors that we're going to have to get into as well. But there are also other changes to the medium version, namely with how it behaves on hit. Previously, if you hit the opponent mid-screen, they'd be launched backwards at a relatively low height. But as you can see, it was pretty good distance. Now, granted, you're not really going to get close-range hits like this with it, but you had about 35 frames to work with. Then you can close the gap a little bit. In the corner, you were able to get combos because of the corner wall bounce. And of course, because of this wall bounce, if you hit the opponent when they were near the corner, then you got some more frame advantage to work with here. However, on counter hit, none of the properties really changed. You still launch the opponent back at pretty much the same range, and in the corner, it's not like all of a sudden you're getting new combos off of this or anything like that. So there really wasn't too much to distinguish between getting a counter hit with this attack and getting a normal hit. Now let's take a look at how the medium version behaves. It inherits the 4 frames reduction of recovery like the light version. So now this is also a safe on block option for Zeta. However, there's a lot of other things that are changing underneath the hood, namely with how it behaves on hit. So let's start taking a look at that. For starters, the launch height has been increased, meaning that you're going to be blowing the opponent farther backwards and be a little more plus in this situation, giving you more time to close the gap after hitting the opponent with it. However, it no longer causes a wall bounce against the corner. Overall, though, if you're close enough to actually combo off of this move, you'll be able to get the same pickups from it. It's a weird change, I think, but I suppose it's just to make it so that it behaves consistently or to reduce your ability to pick up combos from this in the corner. But where things get really interesting with this version of the move is going to be with its behavior on counter hit. The lateral knockback has been increased, and you now get a wall bounce on mid-screen hits. This opens you up to converting this poke into some damage, actually, as well as improving your Oki from a full screen situation. If you're close enough to the opponent, you can link off of this and go into some further damage. Additionally, the rebound distance in the corner on counter hit has been increased. This should mean that if you're able to zone the opponent successfully with this and catch them pressing something here, that you'll be able to convert into some pretty high damage combos. The heavy version of Infinite Wonders has various changes that improves it as a fireball poke for neutral play. Previously, the strike part of the attack that's right next to the opponent would start up at frame 18. Additionally, with the recovery frames as well as the active frames, the entire move used to take 63 whole frames in order to go through, just over a second. This could be pretty slow for a fireball, and the fact that, if you wanted to be plus after your fireball, you had to be at full screen, or nearly at full screen, kind of just made it a little hard for Zeta to justify this. Even just taking a few steps forward, I'm actually -1 here. Granted, this doesn't have too many implications, but being the second to move in an interaction like this could have some small implications in terms of match performances. Now let's check out how they've buffed the heavy version of the move. The startup is 2 frames faster, now coming out at frame 16. This doesn't really create any new useful links. The one thing I can mention is that if you get a close light, this will combo from it now, as opposed to dropping before. But pretty much any more match practical link that you're going to go into, or rather cancel that work, is going to already have existed in the previous patch. In addition to that, this move also has 4 frames less of recovery and 2 frames less of block stun. All that comes together to allow Zeta to actually be safe on block again as opposed to punishable. Again, -3, so all of her fireballs are safe at point blank range. And again, at full screen situations, she's going to be more advantageous, meaning that she's usually going to be able to actually be pretty bullying when it comes to fireball wars against some of the cast. There are also changes to the heavy version to improve it as a combo tool for Zeta. Previously, the knockback on hit for the fireball portion of the move was significantly stubby. Compare that to the medium version. It sends the opponent very far away. You generally would use the EX version you're combo routing to launch the opponent, and then getting a wall bounce. But the range was very, very small.
Great.
I basically had to push the opponent into the corner. And even then, if you do get some of these spaced out hits, the opponent didn't really bounce back to you, so you weren't able to get close mediums from some of these farther ranges, meaning that Zeta would have to rely on other launchers to put the opponent into the corner, whereas, maybe she would prefer to save some other cooldowns or wouldn't have cooldowns available given a particular situation. Finally, for heavy Infinite Wonders, the knockback on the second hit, the fireball, has been increased so that you get wall bounces from further away from the corner now, and the wall bounce rebound distance is also increased, allowing you to get better confirms.
Great.
This should be pretty nice for Zeta. This might have been an awkward spot for her to get a good launcher here in the corner before, but now she can pretty reliably just rely on heavy fireball in order to get some launchers going to extended combos. Now we're getting into a bulk of the changes to Zeta in this patch. Buffs and some nerfs to her Spear of Arvess moves, depending on the version. So let's go ahead and talk about some changes to the startup across the light, medium, and heavy versions, both for the Rising version as well as the Falling version. Previously, all 3 versions of Rising Spear of Arvess had 12 frame startup. Meanwhile, the Falling version all had 18 frame startup. Now let's take a look at the new startup for all versions of Spears of Arvess that we've talked about so far. The Rising version is 3 frames faster, now coming out of frame 9. It should open up some new combo route potential and links. For example, you can go straight into this from close light, though I'm not really sure how match practical that is or how useful it is, but it's just something worth noting. The falling versions are now 2 frames faster, coming out of frame 16. All this should mean that a lot of Zeta's combo routes that utilize these spears should be a little more lenient since you have faster attacks to link into now. We'll explore some combo routes that you can do with Zeta in the current patch after we finish talking about the rest of the changes to Spear of Arvess. The heavy version of the Spear of Arvess's and its second follow-up attack have a couple of buffs to them to improve its combo utility. Previously, if you wanted to pick up extensions after using the heavy version of Spear of Arvess, you had to take the opponent high into the sky and then come straight downwards in order to cause Zeta to land earlier, starting her recovery so that she can then pick up links. Even then, combos like this could be quite tricky to pull off just because of the specific delays that you needed with your timing to make this work. If you did the diagonal upwards attack to finish the sequence or the forward attack to finish the sequence, then you were really left with nothing. Now, after the second follow-up to Heavy Spear Arvess, you get more hit stun. In fact, it's been doubled from 60 frames of hit stun to 120. In addition to that, if you're close enough to the corner, you actually get wall bounces off of the horizontal as well as the upwards diagonal versions. With the right kind of spacing and timing, as well as just manipulation of your spear, you're actually able to get extensions off of this. Just as an example of what you could potentially do. Now that we've looked at all this stuff, let's go ahead and explore some new combo routes thanks to Twitter. So now with all these buffs to Spear of Arvess discussed, at least into the non-ultimate versions, let's go ahead and look at what you can do with Zeta combo routes now, courtesy of Zeta. Pretty impressive corner carry where you're actually able to go into super skybound art combos from mid-screen into the corner thanks to the wall bounce that occurs now. Additionally, if we actually go back, we can see that G-Tech even further improved on this. And this does rectify one statement I did make earlier. You're gonna Right there, we were actually able to link the buff dash heavy from this positioning in order to then continue the combo. I said that I had some difficulties finding places to use this buff, but G-Tech, being a more experienced Zeta player than myself, has been able to find something for y'all, and I did want to highlight that here. And this is almost a coast-to-coast combo as well. Keep that in mind. We started this from nearly the other side of the screen. So this should result in Zeta getting just better damage, better Okazemi, and a lot more corner carry, putting the opponent into more ideal positions for her to run her offense. These are really good buffs. Also, I need to criticize you, G-Tech. Where the hell is your Zeta tag for the Twitter people? The medium version of Spear of Arvess has a couple of buffs to make it more usable, apparently. So, they've changed how the movement works with this skill, making it faster initially, and then it accelerates over the course of the move. In addition to that, they've also adjusted the knockback on hit. Let's take a look at the movement first. So it seems like pretty stable and flat throughout it. Because of this, Zeta would hit here at the old time of frame 12 before that startup buff that we talked about earlier. In addition to that, if we do these follow-ups immediately, you had a lot of control over it, but at the peak of the height, you would cross up right here against Gran. Not that that's really useful for a mix-up or anything like that. As for the knockback, that's what it would look like before. Now let's take a look at how the medium version moves in the new patch. You start with more movement speed and de-accelerate over the course of the move. It's definitely more sudden, making this a little harder to react to, I think. In addition to that, while you're namely going to be ending up in the same position, since the follow-ups aren't adjusted, Again, you're just going to be able to find more places to use this, and don't forget that we have reduced startup as well in this option. Additionally, the lateral knockback has been increased. Ideally, this will mean that you're getting slightly more corner carry for using this version of the move in your combos.
Great.
Granted, finding places to fit this into your combos could be tricky, given the fact that this tends to whiff. Next up is the ultimate version of Spear Arvess, which has a lot of changes to its damage, properties on hit, and properties on block. Previously, if you got the close version of the move, where you get the cinematic follow-up, you would get about 2,000 damage. In addition to that, you get a pretty generous wall bounce, where you could get a lot of combos. This basically meant that with Zeta, if you were able to actually catch the opponent with these moves, you could get like double ultimate skill follow-up with a lot of corner carry and damage.
Excellent.
Because of this insane reward that you could get from the special moves, they made it so that this was unsafe on block for Zeta. You're -6 and right next to the opponent, so you're eating a close light punish in a lot of situations. Savvy viewers might have noticed the next change that we're about to talk about, and that's going to be to the wall rebound distance. It's been dramatically reduced in this new version.
Great.
So Zeta's rewards for hitting this are going to be significantly reduced in mid-screen. In the corner, the follow-up window remains the same as it once was.
Excellent.
And you do get a wall bounce here. But again, the rebound distance isn't quite so high, so you're very much going to have to be like pushing the opponent into the corner to get any real pickups off of this. So what did they change? Well, first off, they buffed the damage on the horizontal version of the spear at close range, giving it 500 more damage at base. Interesting enough, this doesn't apply if you use the upwards version. That one stays at 2,000. However, there's some nerfs that we have to discuss now. To offset this, they actually made the move safe on block now. So the idea here is to make this a move that you can more safely throw out in neutral and get some reward for it, basically a knockdown, or into the corner, you're actually able to get combo extensions. But if the opponent does block this, you are -4, giving up your turn instead of being punished, which I suppose is a nice bit of compensation for nerfing this move. We'll see what Zeta mains think about this as time goes on. There's also another change to discuss when it comes to the rising and falling version of Ultimate Arvess Sphere. They've expanded the hitbox where you register a close hit, so you should be able to go into the cinematic follow-ups to this move at greater ranges,
Great.
making the move perform more consistently. Now let's take a look at Crimson Cleave. From the light and medium version of Rhapsody, there's a lot of changes going on here to the recovery, to the startup, and to its behavior on hit. So let's take a look at them pretty much together. Previously, the move was -9 on block and had 15 frames startup. Now let's take a look at Crimson Cleave's new properties. It's 2 frames faster, coming out of frame 13. This doesn't open up any new links for Zeta from what I can tell. So I think that the improved startup is just to make it more effective when you counter something with Rhapsody. Now let's talk about the other properties. It has 1 frame less of recovery, so instead of being -9 on block, it's -8. There's also less pushback, meaning that the opponent is going to be closer to you. So even though that you are technically safer, the proximity should allow more close range normals to trigger in case the opponent does somehow block this. Additionally, they've adjusted the behaviors on hit. The lateral knockback has been reduced, so the enemy is left closer to you, and the launch height has been increased. That said, if you use it against an airborne opponent, you have 30 frames less hit stun to work with, so it's not going to be as great of a combo tool against airborne opponents. That's what the launch height looks like now, and in mid-screen, it's not really too workable. As you can see, even with the buff 2M, you're not able to pick up anything here. In the corner, however, you're now able to link a close light, so if you do get into some of these situations, you're actually able to get some short combos off of this. As for the version of Crimson Cleave that you can do from the heavy version of Rhapsody, there's only 2 changes going on here. The first is going to be to the recovery. Previously, this was also -9. Additionally, you will get a pretty workable wall bounce when you use this move. Of course, that's assuming you had the wall. You can link a close medium here.
Great.
As for using the heavy Rhapsody into Crimson Cleave, it also inherits 1 frame less recovery, so now it's also -8 instead of -9. To offset this change and to make sure that Zeta doesn't have new links, they've reduced the duration it takes for the wall bounce to occur. You still get the same pickups and combos here.
Great.
Rising Split from the light and medium version of Rhapsody has a lot of changes going on, so let's go ahead and start breaking those down. For starters, the old damage used to be 1,000. In addition to that, you can see that it was 9 frames startup and there was a decent amount of lateral knockback, while also having a pretty good amount of height to it. So this basically meant that if you did get this move off, the enemy was reset a little farther away, and Zeta would have to close some of the gap in order to maintain her offense. Additionally, the move didn't have any strike invulnerability on it before, so if the opponent managed to Gatling a close light into another close light, you could potentially be hit out of this move. Of course, if you're fast enough, then, you know, you would be able to beat the Gatling option right here. But there could be some very odd situations and inconsistencies because of this move. Now let's look at the buffs to Rising Split from the light and medium version of Rhapsody. The damage has been increased by 200. So now it will do 1,200 damage from simple inputs. Additionally, the startup has been reduced. It used to come out on frame 9, but now it's on frame 6, and it has a couple other properties going on as well. For example, it now is strike invulnerable for 8 frames when being used after armoring a foe's attack, and the clash level has been increased. This should mean that it's actually more effective for you to use it when the opponent is trying to string you up. So it's nice to have this tool be a little more effective in these situations. Additionally, the launch height has been adjusted slightly. There's less lateral knockback, and the launch height has been reduced, so you shouldn't really be picking up anything new from here, I think. So this is namely here, I think, for some anti-air plays, or just for a safe, invincible option to get the opponent off of you. Now the damage has been increased by 200. So now it does 1,600 damage with simple inputs. Pretty small buff, but, you know, having more effective damage when you do get a successful counter is nice. There's also some practical use applications when you're using Zeta combos after going for the counter attacks as well. Again, that wall bounce giving us this extension. Pretty nice stuff. For another general look at what Zeta can do thanks to the changes to Arvess as well as to her counters, let's go ahead and take a look at Bread's clip here from Twitter. So this is like your mid-screen routing stuff. You're able to link a 2M thanks to the buff to it, I believe, from the counter hit Farlight. And again, we're seeing that wall bounce on the EX follow-ups from Arvess coming into play here. If you're able to get a Crimson Cleave here, using a couple of ultimate skills gets you some pretty great corner carry. And now, actually, from a Rising Split, you're able to get side swaps like this and actually take advantage of them thanks to that wall bounce. And then you can think of this as like your maximum punish on a DP. Breaking 10K is very impressive. Thanks for the clip, Brad. Before I really get into the summary, I do want to highlight that while I was working on the video, I noticed how loud the game audio was compared to my voice, and so I did turn it down partway through recording this thing. So I'm sorry for the audio quality and the audio levels being a little bit jarring here. Going forward, it should be a little more stable since I think I've been able to iron out the settings. All that being said, I do think that Zeta is vastly buffed in this patch, getting a lot more easier full-screen corner carry combos as well as a bunch of new additional combo routes. Rhapsody is insanely buffed, being far more useful, especially against multi-hitting attacks thanks to the new iframes on these Rising Split follow-up that she's able to do with the move. I think that her counter is overall going to be less reliant on the EX cooldown and might actually be pretty functional and viable in a lot of situations. Not to mention that the reward that she's able to get off of certain hits, namely some counter hits, as well as just some hits where she has the opponent cornered without needing a counter hit, is going to vastly improve her defensive conversions overall as well, making this a little more unique as a move. After all, a reversal tends to be just like an invincible get off me option. But for Zeta, she actually has to parry something, and then she's able to actually get combo rewards off of it. So I think that definitely helps Rhapsody feel like a stronger, more unique defensive tool compared to some other invincible reversal options. She does lose some of the strength in terms of confirming off of her ultimate skills, but a lot of that power has been shifted so that she's no longer reliant on just needing to bully you through neutral with those ultimate skills. Instead, she has pretty good defensive tools with Rhapsody, great corner carry combos, so when she does get the hit on you offensively, she is able to convert that into some pretty big corner carry and damage. I think this is a pretty good version of Zeta to play, and I think that the players overall should be quite happy for her.